Good evening and welcome to the Revere School Committee of the Whole meeting, December 20th, 2022. Please stand and salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mrs. Bronson Rizzo,
Here.
Mr. Ferranti,
Here.
Mrs. Gravellisi,
Here.
Mr. Kingston,
Here.
Mrs. Milbury Ellis,
Here.
Ms. Ty,
Here.
Mayor Arrigo.
So the first item on the agenda is consent calendar. Did anyone have any question of the minutes, the draft minutes that were sent to us? Being none, we're moving on to warrants. Does anyone have any question on the warrants for Mr. Cruz?
Mr. Rizzo,
Mr. Ferranti?
thank you. I have three questions. The first one is on page 1, number 13, Nicole O'Neill, ERAD Consulting Services. Just a quick explanation what that's for.
Sure, so our Nicole O'Neill is our E-rate consultant. She has been for as long as I can remember. And it's an annual fee that we pay to her to take care of the submission of all of our E-rate applications. And that includes all of the reimbursement that we get for any technology involved work that we do. It's not end user pieces, so it's not the Chromebooks and that stuff, but everything around wiring and switches and all of that work that Jonathan Ferrara does, we get reimbursed a portion of through the federal E-rate program.
Is that one time a year?
Once a year, yep.
Then I'm going to page 9, number 320, Contract Corp, City Fiber Infrastructure Repair.
So that was the result of a car accident that happened in August, where one of our fiber poles was struck by a vehicle. And this was the cost for the emergency repair to keep the city's fiber optic system going. And that is a system that covers not only the school department, but also the fire department and the police department and City Hall. So it was necessary that that emergency repair be done.
Do we have any reimbursement on that money?
We don't get reimbursed for it, but this year that was covered through, because we knew it in advance, we had planned that into Schedule 19, you might recall in the budget over the summer. And we did work with Rich Viskey in the mayor's office. Going forward, issues like that will be covered through the ETP funding, which is also necessary in order to keep the community connected to cable television.
And do we know where the car accident was?
I did know at the time, but I forget now.
Okay, all right, it's all right. And my last question's on page 14, number 467, grade school partnerships, summer retreat equity work.
So that was professional development that teachers and administrators engaged in over the summer on ensuring equity in the curriculum. And the Great Schools has been a partner with us for about 10 years now, maybe a little bit longer.
Thank you very much.
Can I say one thing? I know that Mr. Cruz greatly appreciated you sending him the questions in advance. And the reason I'm able to answer them so quickly is because I have them right here. He gave me those notes. So I have to credit Mr. Cruz with providing that explanation. And he felt like having people send the questions in advance was very helpful. And he credited Mr. Kingston with that idea, I should say.
And I just want to say, I don't know when we discussed having that routine being done. I must have not been around when it was discussed and said this is what we were going to do.
It was done, I think, a couple of months ago.
What?
Recommended to do that.
I know Mr. Kingston brought it up at a social time, but never as a group did we speak on it. So I'd like to be included on conversations like that. I don't know if anyone else feels the same. Mr. Kingston.
I spoke on the floor about it, and it wasn't during social time. Mr. Cruz was standing at the podium, and we discussed it. So it wasn't off. It was during part of a meeting. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to have to go back because I don't recall having any conversation on it. All I got was, it was a recommendation from you, and I think that's what was in the minutes, too. I just, if this is what was decided by the group, that's fine. I just have no recall of it. I didn't see anything in our draft minutes on it, and if we're going to work as a team, we need to do everything together as a team. So, moving on. Oh, Ms. Ty, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Just at the very last page, it's noticing all the picnic tables, and I smile when I notice it. And I thought Dr. Kelly might want to just mention about the reason for that and the movement that we have through the school to try to keep kids safe and so forth.
Sure. As the committee knows, as we came through COVID, there were a number of things that we put in place to try to ensure student safety, and one of those things was being outside whenever we could. And one of the things that we really emphasized was eating outside, because that's when students would be unmasked at a time when the majority of us were masking indoors. And that's turned out to be one of the bonuses, I would say, of COVID, is that we really have embraced this idea of going outside for lunch, giving the kids a breathing break, and letting them socialize. So you will see that all of the schools pretty much have new picnic tables in their expense reports.
Yeah. And I just observed that sometimes even members of the school committee sit outside and join via Zoom. Remember the day you couldn't get into the building? And you found the
Oh, on the
picnic
picnic tables
table.
out front.
I
Yeah.
thought the meeting was here, and it wasn't, so I just cozied up, and it was
That's-
gorgeous.
That's
And the
what we do.
Same thing, the one that is, I can't think of the word, Mona. She likes sitting out there on her computer and getting work done, too, so it's nice to
Yeah.
see people
It's a
enjoying
very nice
it,
thing.
whether students or adults, so.
And I should say that all of the picnic tables are like the ones that you see out in front of the superintendent's office or in the back of the high school, that are really weather resistant and made to be durable. And the intention is that they'll stay out throughout the school year, and then they get put away in the summer when school's not in session.
Great.
Anyone else have any question on the warrants? Okay, moving on. There is no financial reports, no food service reports, and no communications, no enrollment.
I actually asked Robin to update the agenda. The two communications had been under financial reports with Matt Cruz, and I indicated that they really should be under communications because they are letters.
Right.
Yep, so.
I think those are things we might want to take off the consent agenda and bring it forward to the meeting so people
Yeah.
know what the work is and have an explanation. Thanks, John. Anyone mind? Okay.
Should we save the questions for the regular meeting, or should we ask them now?
What questions?
On this petty cash? I just have one quick question.
Oh, that's fine. It's on the agenda. Go.
Okay. To Dr. Kelly, we're increasing the petty cash for the city lab from $300 to $500. But I noticed in our warrants, they use $600, so is the $500 gonna be enough?
I'm wondering, can you direct me in the warrants where you're talking about?
Okay, give me 1 second, because I did see it. On page 2, number 60 and 62. One's for 373.61 and one's 236.12.
So it's likely those were for two separate months. So even though you're seeing them on one warrant, they would
Right.
have submitted the paperwork for one, gotten reimbursed, and then submitted the paperwork for the second one. But I think that what it shows is that their current limit of $300 is not quite enough for them in any particular given month, depending on what's happening. It's still a nominal amount of money, and the principals really are very careful about using their petty cash. But it could be a situation where 4 or 5 students who are going into Boston for their B-Fit class didn't bring their Charlie card. And now, all of a sudden, you need to have $5 for 4 or 5 kids, and quickly, those little bits of money add up.
Would this be effective if we vote on it tonight from now to the end of June?
Yes, it would,
Okay.
yep.
Thank you.
And just while I'm talking about it, I may as well mention the petty cash account for the Fine Arts Department. One of the issues that they have in their procurement, and this is particularly for things like fabric, that can't be bought easily. You have to really go to a specialty store to get what you need. And most of those specialty stores, first of all, won't accept a purchase order. But also, they're buying things very quickly. Somebody's dress ripped, so they need to get a replacement fabric or a new thread. And so that's why you see that we're starting a petty cash account for the Fine Arts Department. And again, it would still be those unusual one-offs. Everybody knows that they're supposed to follow the procurement process and submit a requisition for expenditures whenever possible.
Okay, so we'll be taking that off the agenda, the consent calendar, and onto the regular agenda for a vote. Acceptance, we have new hires, personnel items, retirements. Anyone have any questions on that?
Mrs. Rizzo, I just have
Mr.
one question.
Ferranti?
Thank you. To Dr. Kelly, we had somebody resign as the health aide at SBA as of this week. Do we have somebody to replace that person?
No, one of the plans we had made for this year, you'll remember that the health aides we also brought in during COVID. And because we were unsure of how things would go this year, and because we had the funding through ESSER to keep them on, we said we would keep the health aides on for the 22-23 school year, but as people chose to move on, we would not replace them. And in that way, if we had some kind of a spike, we would have some folks on hand to respond to that. Thankfully, that's not been the case so far. There's actually one other piece on the personnel items that I want to share with the committee, and unfortunately, I didn't get paperwork done in enough time to get it on this agenda, but I do want to mention to you that Nick Maglione, who is currently one of our truancy officers, is going to be moving to Peter Martino's position of, he's currently a residency officer. He is going to be moving to Peter Martino's position of truancy officer, effective immediately. And we will be opening his position for another residency officer probably right after the holidays. We'll probably wait until then when people have the capacity to start interviewing and all of that. But if anybody knew anybody who would be good for that position, we'll post it. But if any leads on that would be welcomed. I will say that Nick has been acting as the truancy officer throughout Peter Martino's absence. And before we even talked about moving, Nick had mentioned to me that he was interested, but independently of that conversation, 2 separate principals came to me and said, I got to tell you what a great job Nick is doing. He's been invaluable. So we're really excited to see him move into this role, and we think he's going to be a huge asset to help us get kids back into school, which is definitely a priority.
Thank you.
That's great. Okay, acceptance of donations, gifts, and grants. These are 2 items I'd like to, wait a minute, what did we already pull off? Oh, you know what? I'm sorry, it wasn't the petty cash I wanted to pull, it was these 2 items. I'm sorry, we can do both. So, yes, I would like to pull the acceptance of donations, but if anyone has any questions regarding either of those 2 grants, please feel free to ask.
Just one question.
Mr. Ferranti?
Dr. Kelly, are these one-year grants? Do we have to apply for them every year?
Yes, these are one-year grants that the governor's office released this year. We don't know that there'll be follow-up, and that's especially true with the Mass Grad Grant. You'll recall that we had a larger teacher diversification pilot grant for the last 2 years. And we got a somewhat minimal amount of money for next year. That's the $15,843. And Dr. Garcia is still overseeing that grant as he did in the past. This money, he's going to focus on high school students who have identified themselves as wanting to pursue education in the future. And he met with Salem State the other day. We're trying to connect with Lynn Public Schools, who has an AmeriCorps program. And what he's targeting these funds for is to help our Revere High School students who said, I want to be a teacher, get up to Lynn, if we can make this partnership complete, and so that they can have classes in Lynn through the AmeriCorps program, which also provides paid internships. And so ultimately, our kids will be doing like a student teaching kind of thing in Revere, hopefully being paid through AmeriCorps and Lynn. And we would use a small amount of money on things like transportation to get them back and forth, and somebody to supervise their travel.
School field trips, RHS JROTC has one coming up for March 3rd and 4th. Anyone have questions on the field trip? Seeing none? Ms. Ty?
It isn't really a question. It's just, I'm delighted to see that we are doing field trips again. Because I remember when we were talking about a trip to China just before the COVID, and what we were discussing was whether that was proper, and it turned out we were right, it was not. Thank God, we had some insight into that. So I'm really delighted to see that there are going to be more field trips. And of course, I'm always personally, and I know we all are, so proud of the ROTC program and watching that go out and compete. And they've been doing that for a while, but still, every time I see it, I smile with pride, and I know we all do, so I'm happy.
Mr. Kingston?
I would just like to make and maybe through Dr. Kelly, Major Boca could, in the past, I've helped them notarize parents' forms for permission slips and things like that. They've literally, when I used to do the basketball clock on Tuesday nights, they would literally meet me in the gym and I'd be notarizing people's signatures in front of me. But I would like to make myself available for that if so needed. A lot of times the parents need to sign off on permission slips and they do need to be notarized. So I just wanted, through you, to make myself available to do that for them at any time, whether it's at Revere High School or a place of their choosing. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll ask Robin to pass that message on to the major and the sergeant major.
And so any questions on the consent calendar as we are at the bottom of the list? Okay. Moving on, number 2, pottery wheels. Mr. Kingston?
I saw a request for, I believe it was a Donuts Choose, I'm pretty sure of that, for pottery wheels here at the high school. I know it's not in the budget per se, but it's pretty hard to have a pottery class without pottery wheels. And I was told it was around approximately $3,000 to purchase 3 of them. I'm not sure where the Donuts Choose is at. I donated it to myself personally, but it's difficult to make 3,000 on Donuts Choose. It's a kind of a tall order. So I would like to have this possibly go to Ways and Means, to be voted to go to Ways and Means, and hopefully be able to help the class. I think it's important, encore classes like this help engage the students. I've had students tell me and teachers tell me that sometimes this is a reason for a kid to come to school because he enjoys doing something, working with his hands and doing artwork and things like that. And a lot of the kids are dedicated to that process, and I think it's something that we should fund. I know there's wants and needs, but I don't think you can have a pottery class unless the wheels work. So I would really like to see this go to Ways and Means and be voted out favorably. Hopefully we can find money in the budget to pay for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kingston. On the other hand, You know, I look at our donors choose, and our educators utilize that a lot, right, Ms. Ty? The donors choose, yeah.
Yeah.
For, you know, items to enhance our students' day and the curriculum in the classroom. And right now, we have 29 educators asking for something on donors choose. And we also have to keep in mind, all requests must be approved by their school principal prior to even asking for the project to be funded by Donors Choose, and that once they are fulfilled, it becomes the property of Revere Public Schools. I mean, we have teachers asking for the wobble chairs, common lights, speech therapy items, sensory items, pedometers, you name it. They're asking, and I think it's a great way for teachers to enhance the student's life by asking for those things. These are not budgetary items. These are basically gifts. So on my part, I don't feel like, I mean, and how do you pick one and not all? I mean, we can't really pick and choose that one might mean more to a classroom than another one. I think if people want to donate, I think it's very good. I'm going to say, Ms. Ty, you are on there 24/7. I'm always surprised how fast she gets on there. For someone that doesn't really know how to use the internet, she just,
Oh, I'm getting better.
you are getting better.
Don't misjudge me.
I mean, and it's nice to be giving, but we have to, you know, really focus on our jobs of policies, budget, superintendent goals, and advocacy. So you know, I'd like to leave the donations to donations and us doing our own work, and that's just my opinion. I'll leave it to anyone else to bring what they want to the floor. Mr. Ferranti.
Thank you, Ms. Rizzo. Mr. Kingston, could we find out how much money they've raised so far for the pottery wheels?
I think they need another 1,300.
1,300, okay.
I've donated in the past from the Revere Municipal Credit Union with the consent of the Board of Directors, and also personally to Donors Choose. I've done many Donors Choose. I just don't think pottery wheels for a classroom that's a pottery class is a Donors Choose item. I just don't feel that way. I think it's something that they need to use to have the class. And I think not having it is really something. I think there's wants and needs and wishes, and this is more of a need. Because you can't have a pottery class if the wheels don't work. You just can't make the pottery. So I don't consider it the same thing. No, I do not. And thank you.
So, and I'll have to do a little bit more investigation into this, but I know that if there was a pottery class that did not have pottery wheels, that was designed to have pottery wheels, especially for $3,000, that would have been taken care of. The principals have budgets for supplies and materials, and so do the curriculum directors. And I don't want to say this is the case in this situation because I don't know enough about it, but it's not unusual. Like when I was in the classroom, I was on Donors Choose because I wanted better calculators than the ones that I had for my kids. There was nothing wrong with the ones that I had for my students, but I wanted them to have the fancier ones. And so I would go on Donors Choose for something like that. And I just think that that's where we can get a little bit askew, because we do have people who are responsible for being in charge of these things. And as you all know, you recently said give everybody $200 to help with their classroom supplies. And so we try to balance the requests for new materials and supplies with the priorities that the principal and the directors have set for the curriculum. And I do feel like there's something to be said for allowing that process to play itself out while recognizing that some teachers are going to go on Donors Choose, which is a fantastic resource for educators to get the special things that they want for their classroom. And it could be updated pottery wheels, or it could be some kind of a newly advanced pottery wheel that our pottery wheels in the school right now don't have, or you know, something of that nature. I don't know which teacher posted the project, but I can definitely talk to Kelly Williams and talk to Chris Bowen and see if they feel like that's something that is needed. And they certainly, between the two of them, have the budget to support that, if they feel that it is.
If I may.
Ms. Ty?
You know, you both bring up the issue of Donors Choose. I think that is such a wonderful organization. I know I see your names on it, and I see my name, all of us are there. But I'm really astounded at how many of our teachers use that. I mean, some of them, they get one project done, and then they go and they start with another one, and that gets funded. And of course, I suppose if you are successful in that, then why not? I know I certainly would have been doing it if I could have got better sheets for when we did Julius Caesar. You know, we would have had better togas if I could have got them through Donors Choose instead of my mother's old sheets. But at any rate, I think it's wonderful, and I think it's, I'm sure it is more difficult for them to run through that because they have to think about it and they have to plan it all out, and it does take time and everything, and I admire them for doing it. It's just, I'm just using this as a nice excuse to say that I think that we have just wonderful teachers.
And we do.
who
You know, if
help
they're
us out.
trying to enhance a classroom to make the kids stay
Yeah.
more comfortable, what more do we want for our students? So, Mr. Kingston, I'm going to leave it to you if you want to make a motion to put it towards Ways and Means when... Okay, there's a motion to put it towards Ways and Means.
I'll second.
Second by Aisha Milbury. And maybe that could go when Dr. Kelly gets more information. Okay. And regular meeting agenda items. Anyone have anything they need to bring up from the next meeting coming up at 6? Anyone have anything miscellaneous that they want to bring up? Oh, Dr. Kelly.
Thank you. I just actually, Mr. Kingston had sent me an email just looking for a couple of updates that I knew the committee would appreciate all of them. And the first one is about the cameras. We have installed 64
Dr.
new-
Kelly, I don't mean to butt in, but I know Susan was going to bring that. I
Oh.
had spoken to Mr. Kingston and said I would bring it to the chairs of those subcommittees for them
Okay.
to get the information for what they might need, and so I can,
If Diane has the update already, that's fine with me, thank you. Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
So we have installed 64 new interior cameras, 8 in each school building, not each school, but each building. And we have also installed 3 new exterior cameras at Revere High School, 4 exterior cameras at Beachmont City Lab, and 3 exterior cameras at the Garfield Complex. So we still continue to add more. We still have a couple of requests or supplies that we have put out to bid, but they're still on hold due to supply chain issues. The temporary timeline right now for the rest of them is February, and that would be an additional 5 to 7 cameras at each school on the exterior for Wayland SBA Complex, for RMA, and for Paul Revere. So we're making progress.
Nice.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Thank you, Ms. Gravellisi, for getting that work together. And then the next one,
The next one was a question about what are we doing about COVID, especially with the vacation coming up. And I would like to, with the committee's approval, repeat this message at the regular meeting, as there might be different people watching then. But we are sending home 2 COVID tests with every adult and child. The packaging is a little bit different for students this time. They're going to have 2 boxes, each with 1 test in it. Before, we used to have 1 box that had 2 tests each. And the teachers will still receive it that way. Those are the eye health tests. But the tests that we have for the kids are a little bit different. It's one in each box. So parents should watch for their children to come home with 2 boxes. Each box will have 1 test in it. And again, we're encouraging people to use one of those tests as they plan to be around large groups of family and make sure that folks are safe for that. And then save the second test for when we're returning to school on January 3rd. Tuesday, January 3rd will be our first day back from vacation. Schools will be distributing the test kits on Thursday, so parents should look for those in backpacks on Thursday afternoon. And then if a student is absent on Thursday but in on Friday, they can pick up their tests on Friday.
Great. Ms. Ty?
If I may, the government has already put out notice that they would renew the delivery through the post office. I think it's 2 for every, it's 4 for every household. Well, I put in for that anyway. And we'll share with a neighbor who needs something like that. And I'm sure that there are plenty of people who are a lot more savvy about how to do that, who could do that. So maybe that, there's a link to that. Maybe we should send out the link to that so that you could do it. All right?
Definitely.
I have it at home, so I'll look for it.
Okay. I'll ask Dr. I have one more thing, is that okay?
Can I just ask one question?
Yes, Mr. Franti.
Dr. Kelly, we requiring everyone to be tested the day before they come back to school?
We're not requiring testing, we're strongly encouraging.
Okay.
Dr. Kelly?
So the last thing that I wanted to bring to the committee's attention is really a student that I think the committee might want to recognize at their January meeting. And his name is Angel Ortiz Arazo. He's a sophomore at Revere High School. And he just found out today that he's been selected for the MLS Major League Soccer Next indoor team in Foxborough. So he's been working out with the Revolution for a number of years now. He's been working out with them, and he's made the team. And just to help put that in context, the MLS Next team is basically the kids that are either going to go to the Olympics or that they think are going to be competing at the World Cup level when they, come to that age bracket that they're doing that. So we're just really proud of Angel.
Wow.
Yeah, it's definitely, a very, very huge deal. And I thought with that in mind that the committee might want to recognize him at their January meeting, and if so, we can get that information out. But congratulations to Angel anyway.
Yes.
Nope. Do we have a motion for a good thing?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Ferranti and Aisha for a second? Okay, I have one item I just wanted to bring up. And I had spoke on one of our responsibilities was advocacy. And I know a lot of people have heard a lot of rumors about the hotel in North Revere. And, families coming in. So I am on the LGAC committee with the Lieutenant Governor, and we were just talking about it last week. And I wish the mayor was here, because he had a conversation with the Undersecretary for Housing and Community Development, Jen Maddock. So I was hoping he could shed more light on it. But the fact is, there's 3,600 state family shelters that are full, absolutely full. And in the interim, they are using hotels and motels to put families in that don't have a safe space to even sleep. The plan is for several hundred additional shelters to go in this year. And, they are, rumor had it, it's North Revere being looked at, which is really sad. But these kids need somewhere to go. And unfortunately, we will only, although Dr. Kelly has been talking to the commissioner, like other districts, you're only getting $1,000 per student to educate. So they're coming in at a deficit, not them as a deficit, but instead of 16,000 per child, you're only getting the 1,000 per child. Then they have ELL issues. So you add, that's more money. And then, I hope not, but just to have special education issues, it's very costly. We want these students to be educated, but these shelters are only going to be supposedly for 30 days also. So it's no sooner do you get them in, evaluated, they're gone. So there is the Needs Act. I think the supplemental budget is 73 million. I don't know where to go with this, but I really feel that it is something that we need to be working on for the sake of those families and for the sake of our students and our families here too. So if anyone has any ideas on how we can push for the advocacy piece on this, that would be greatly helpful. And maybe our mayor will have some ideas also. So just to keep that in the back of your mind. Mr. Ferranti?
Thank you, Mrs. Rizzo. Have we heard when, if they are going to the hotel, when it's going to happen? And approximately how many students will we be getting?
No, there's no definite. I know, there's been inspections. I don't know how many, whether it's the fire or any kind of safety inspections at North Revere, but I know they've been in there. As far as families, sadly, who knows? And although, we all, our hearts break for these families and what they're going through, it's just, it's also a burden for our families in Revere and our education. But it is a public education, everyone is entitled to it. It's just, it'd be more helpful if the state could help us out a little doing this. So, any help would be appreciated. Anyone else have anything to bring up at this time? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second?
And so we will adjourn, and our school committee meeting will start at 6 PM. Thank you.